Hello, welcome to Carnivore Wellness. I'm Rebecca. Today I want to chat with you about binge eating. I feel like this is one of my go-to topics, but for good reason. It is the thing I've struggled with for the longest. So I've been on a path of unpacking that, changing those behaviors, rewiring the brain to not choose binge eating as my go-to coping mechanism. I'm still in transition. It's still a journey. I'm still figuring things out. But what I want to touch on today is the personal growth side of the binge eating. I have talked in previous videos about what I've done to address it on a physical level. That currently looks like me stopping eating at about 3 p.m. every day. Most days I'll still make a few allowances, if certain social situations or family gatherings come up, but by and large, for the most part, I quit eating at 3, and that has done wonders for me because I no longer spend the rest of the hours of the day until bedtime stuffing my face with food. Granted, carnivore foods, but still, it's excess. It's more than I need. It's a behavior I have been intentionally working to let go of. So I started that process of the intermittent fasting stuff January of this year, 2025. It took a few months to really get my footing and to get to feel like I was gaining momentum and really solidifying the habit, because I would still binge eat. That behavior would still present itself during that eating window. Granted, at 3 p.m. every day, I cut it off and that was helpful, but the behavior was still there. So I knew I still need to deep dive into why. Why am I binge eating? Why? I've been on carnivore for, at that time it was 2.5 years, now 3 years carnivore. So why was I still binge eating? It's emotional. It's emotional. So I want to talk to you about how I have come to see the binge eating for the protective coping mechanism that it was. I remember binge eating from a very young child, from a very young age. I would go sneak snacks. I would just eat all afternoon, all evening, a lot of times anyways, I remember having those experiences of eating not because I was hungry, but eating for comfort, eating for distraction, eating for numbing. And in doing so, magically, it seemed, I would be able to disconnect from my body because I would eat to the point of being so stuffed and so overly full. And of course, like the quality of the foods I was eating, processed junk and nonsense, made me feel physically terrible. But as long as I felt physically terrible, I didn't have to feel emotionally terrible. When I had hard emotional feelings that I didn't know how to process, that I didn't know how to love myself through, that I didn't know how to accept, I instead chose to eat because that feeling was familiar enough, comforting enough in that it kind of made me feel a little sick and lazy and, just disengaged, I guess is the right word, from life. Well, sometimes disengaging from life can be the protective thing that we need in that moment. Maybe I wasn't in any physical danger, but you try telling that to your emotions when they're all inflamed and fired up and, your limbic system is running wild because for whatever reason you don't feel safe or you don't feel accepted or you don't feel like you belong. A lot of us as kids, we experience that. I turned to food. And that habit stuck with me for a very long time. I mean, I'm still working with it, okay? So the binge eating was protective at times because it allowed me to disconnect from my body. Well, that just basically started me on a path of finding a lot of ways to disconnect from my body because being in my body was painful, because being in my body required that I feel emotions that were weightier than that which I ever had the tools to manage myself. I had a great childhood. I had very loving parents. They'll probably watch this video. Parents, I love you. You did such a phenomenal job, and I'm so thankful for all the love you instilled in me. That said, dealing with hard emotions wasn't exactly a skill. It wasn't a skill that I was taught. I think a lot of us come from families where conflict is avoided, hard conversations are not had, and tough feelings are ignored because we ignore bad behavior. That is hard to undo that programming and come back into a place as an adult where you then go out, seek out, develop the skill sets you need to cope with life's challenges, with heavy emotional weighty things effectively. that was a big one. The binge eating was a way to disconnect from my body. Another way that binge eating has been helpful to me is in that it has allowed me to engage socially without engaging. So let me kind of describe this, set this up for you. If you're going to a party or something, as long as you go over to the food table and you have a plate of food and you're stuffing your face with food, people can't really talk to you, right? Like you can't have those deep connections, those meaningful conversations because the focus is on the food. And there's so many social events where focus is on the food. And I get it. It can be a really great way to come together and for people to share love and connection. But I would often use that as a way to, oh, good, I'm going to this place. I can eat this food. That will be my focus. I'll just, all the other social interactions are just background noise. What a weird way to experience human interactions. What a misaligned way to experience human interactions. To focus on the food, something that is not interacting with you really, not until you ingest it, as opposed to being present with people. I would even do this with my kids. And so let me describe this to you. I would, kids want to play after school or something. And, oh, no, I'm cooking right now. Oh, back up. I don't want the bacon on the stove to pop you. Back up. Go away. Hey, I'm finally sitting down to eat. Why don't you let me just have my meal? Well, as long as I needed to cook or I needed to sit down and eat my meal, I was using that as a barrier to my children. When my children wanted to engage with me, I could put up this barrier of, oh, no, I got to cook or I got to eat. So then again, like that binging process of over-consuming food, eating more than I needed on a routine basis, it was another way for me to disconnect and to not have to show up present because I needed to focus my present mind on the task at hand. I will also say I've also done the same with a frenetic sense of needing to tidy up, especially when the kids were younger. I would just, instead of dealing with the emotional meltdown that my child was having and being there with her in that difficulty and showing her how to navigate it with a regulated body that I did not possess at the time, I instead would just go clean and tidy. It's the same sort of thing. It's distraction. It's a way to disengage, choose something other than engaging with people. Why would I do that? Why would I protect myself from engaging with my kids? Well, because vulnerability is what comes into play. I'm getting slightly ahead of myself. I want to come back to the vulnerability piece. The third thing I want to say, first was numbing. Okay, binge eating helped me with numbing out, not being in my body. Secondly, it's a distraction. It's a way to, if I focus on eating, then I don't have to focus on social connections. And the third one is, I think, just straight up procrastination. Like I'll get this stirring of all these things I need to do, and I need to go and take action. Oh, but as long as I need to make a meal, or as long as I need to eat, I can delay doing that. So I found myself doing that a lot, especially as the kids went off to school, preschool. They were gone for hours at a time. I had plenty I could get done during the day, but I would choose instead to eat because it felt safe and it felt like I could use that as something necessary that I needed to do in an effort to push off all the things that I would feel drawn to. Now, why did I not want to act on those things I felt drawn to? I don't know. Probably the same reasons all of us get stuck, right? The same reasons that all of us, I shouldn't say all, that many of us struggle to, live in our power and put forth the creativity and productivity that feels good to us. So I think fear was a big part of it. And honestly, when I first started the carnivore wellness community, there was so much I wanted to do and I would feel inspired to take action, but then I would freeze in a moment of fear, of second guessing myself, fear of rejection, because sharing my story or creating some content, it's sharing a piece of me and you have to be vulnerable. So, okay, this ties in great. So let's pull back in the vulnerability piece. This binge eating has been protection, has been numbing and distracting, has been disconnecting me from my body. It's also been protecting me from vulnerability, because if I am consumed with consuming, I don't have to feel. And I want to share this idea that was really powerful for me in the early days of my motherhood struggles with postpartum anxiety and depression and feelings of worthlessness that I harbored at the time. I learned in Brene Brown's book, Atlas of the Heart, of an emotion called foreboding joy. And I realized that's the emotion I was feeling all the time, was foreboding joy. So now joy, I want you to think about it. When you feel joyful, you get this rush of good feelings and you almost find yourself elevated in that moment, right? You feel this swelling of open-heartedness and this expansion, and you just feel so good, right? Like the way that you feel when the sunlight hits your face after it's been raining for a week straight or something like that. You just feel this top pinnacle moment. But here's the thing about joy. Joy is not an emotional state that we're in constantly. It is something, it's like a pinnacle emotion. This is how Brene Brown describes it. It's been a while since I read it, so might be paraphrasing a bit. It's this peak emotional feeling that we feel, but it's temporary that we feel that, and that's okay. Then we come back down into our normal state of hopefully balance, contentment, general level of happiness, optimism, and hope. But I wasn't able to be vulnerable enough to allow myself to feel those joys. So people talk about the joys of motherhood, balance out the challenges, and they do. But what if you're stuck in foreboding joy? So foreboding joy is when that joyful feeling starts to rise, when you start to feel it come up, and your spirit, your heart, it's trying to open up to receive that joy and that love in that moment, but you shut it down. The brain kicks in, the limbic system kicks in. It's like, you're not safe. That's not true. You're not a good mom. You're not valid in what it is that you're feeling right now. You need to check this and check that, and you need to regain control. Okay, it's just like a mess, right? Of ways that it's like there's some little person inside of our brains beating us back down with a big old hammer saying, no, you don't get to feel that joy. Why would we do this? It's because feeling joy requires vulnerability, open-heartedness. I talked about how the heart expands in that moment. Well, I was at a place where I was so closed off. My heart was so closed. That sense of expansion was non-existent. I felt so small. I felt so contained, so trapped, that any attempt for my body to experience the emotion of joy, that levity and that light, I shut it down with foreboding joy instead. And so that just hints at why that vulnerability is important. Now, there's another big thing about vulnerability that I think we're all kind of learning and coming into, and that's that in order to be authentic, in order to be the person you want to be, that is in alignment with who you feel that you are, you have to be vulnerable. You have to be open-hearted. You have to be willing to give and receive. And if you're not open to that, if you're not vulnerable, you're going to remain closed off. And so that's where I was for a really long time. And the binge eating helped me stay in that place of being closed off for all the ways I talked about before. Numbing out of my body, disconnecting from my body, not focusing on people in social situations, using it as a means of distraction that I could kind of validate myself. Oh, I've got to eat, to take care of myself. It all was a protective cloak against the vulnerabilities of life. Now, I want to say there are times in life where being vulnerable is actually a threat to safety. And in childhood, I had moments like that where being vulnerable was a threat to my physical safety. But I don't live in that space, in that world anymore. I do not have these threats anymore. So I have to go back in and I have to update, the little girl inside me and be like, yo, little Rebecca, it's okay. You are safe. You are loved. You are protected. You have grown into a woman who can hold her own, who is strong, who's resilient. I've got you. I've got you, little Rebecca. You don't have to hold this energy of protecting yourself all the time. You can let some of those go. You can go back to being a carefree child. So I've had to do some of that work, some of that internal work. Of really going back and giving that inner child, that little Rebecca, permission to just be her free, wild self, her childish self that sees the magic in the world, that is able to openly receive a new experience or person with optimism, joy, hope, and knowing that everything is good and that we're all connected in love. But when you have experiences in life, in your past, maybe in your current day, maybe this is something you're still dealing with, where actually you do need forms of protection. These maladaptive coping mechanisms, they were that protection for me at that time. And they are still to this day. Like I'm talking about how I'm still struggling with binge eating. They're still to this day one of those things that it stirs up it stirs up this kind of overreaction to then protect yourself. So I'm working on this, consciously trying to look at my life and become aware of the patterns and places where I have acted in a way that is not in alignment with my greatest, highest expression of self because of a old pattern of self-protection, if that makes sense. Those patterns protected me in the past, and they serve their purpose. But I am now at this point where I am coming into my own, into being, into my authenticity, my vulnerability, where I can say those things no longer serve me. Thank you for protecting me. Thank you for offering me comfort. Thank you for giving me a way to disconnect from my body when I felt like I was unsafe to be in it with my emotions. And thank you for being that bridge, but I don't need that anymore. I'm going to return that. Return to sender. That's not for me anymore. I'm going to update, the kind of paradigm that I'm living in. I'm going to update my perspective. I'm going to, remind myself that I'm now in a place of safety and love and harmony. And I can choose that. I don't have to choose those old destructive patterns. I kind of came to understand these aspects of me and really diving into where is this binge eating coming from. And it took a while, but honestly, I did it through hiking. Over the spring, I hiked a lot. As soon as the weather turned great, I was out there hiking, several hours a day. And I'd hike without earbuds, without, podcasts in my ears or phone call or anything or music. And I would just be with my thoughts in the woods and my dog and try and let these things come to the surface. Let old memories kind of stir. And a lot of times those old memories were really hard to kind of re-embrace because they were pain points. But where there is pain, there is power. So in going back and and re-examining those pain points, I have been able to offer those parts and pieces of me, those memories and experiences that I had, offer that love and offer that acceptance to myself and recognize that, yeah, I may look back on that instance. I may look back on that version of myself. I may cringe a little bit because I see a lot in her that wasn't what I really wanted to express at that time. But you know what? That version is what got me to this version. And I am finally coming into a place where I really love this version of me. This is super new for me. This I love Rebecca, I love myself thing that I am trying to embody and feel. It is new. It is scary. It is empowering. It's my way forward. I know down in my bones that in loving myself, I am allowing myself to safely step into that vulnerability and authenticity because I myself am enough. I myself accept myself where I am, where I have been, and where I will go. So if I can hold that space for myself, then I can start to heal and move out of these old patterns, out of these old ways of thinking or behaviors that no longer serve me. And that is this binge eating. I just wanted to lay that framework out. I plan to make another video, probably right now, about how this is all coming up for me in the current moment because I feel like I'm so close to letting it go. But with anything, there's always a last minute resurgence. So I'll talk about that in the next video. If you want to watch it, great. If not, that's okay too. I'll throw this out there. I have a very small carnivore wellness community. It is full, I wouldn't say it's full. It is comprised of a handful of really super lovely, wonderful people who are so kind and loving and supportive. We get together once a week, Fridays, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and just chit chat and hold each other up in love and support. And obviously we all share the commonality of choosing to pursue a proper human diet, whatever that looks like to you. Leave the dogma at the door. We don't care if you eat a little something that ain't carnivore. No big deal. Be you. live and let live. But also, if you want to have those conversations with people who are choosing to make the diet lifestyle choices that align with trying to allow us to all live in the way that we want to, and in our most optimal way of being and expressing ourselves, then that might be a space for you. If you feel called to that, great. Sign up for the email list. I just send out one email a week with the Zoom link. You can join, and then we'll just welcome you in, and you can tell us where you are in your journey, and we will receive you with open arms. I'll leave it there. I love you. I hope you love you too. I'll see you next time.